Everybody, I have in front of me an extremely exciting paper. It's called Structured Exercise After Adjuvant Chemotherapy for Colon Cancer. This is an exciting paper because it is very hard to do randomized controlled trials on behavioral stuff after cancer for a couple of reasons. One, because it's hard to do behavioral trials at all. Two, and I hope nobody's going to get too mad at me for saying this, but medicine has a bias toward medicine, and physical activity seems less like medicine. Now, there have been a bunch of what we call observational studies where they look at people who have had cancer and then people who exercise have better outcomes than people who don't exercise. But that's not the highest quality data that we want to look at. There's all kinds of confounding factors that you might have there. Maybe more affluent people exercise more and more affluent people have better health care on average. Maybe people who are less likely to exercise are less likely to exercise because they have some residual disease and their body can feel that. So what we want is to take a group of people who are in pretty much the exact same situation. They've had colon cancer, they had surgery, and then they had what's called adjuvant chemotherapy. They had surgery that removed all the visible cancer from their body, and then they took chemotherapy to kill any potential microscopic cancer. But then with colon cancer, there's still a pretty good chance that they will, their cancer will come back and they will probably die at that point. I think if it comes back, it's really hard to tamp it down because it's survived several treatments already. So we take these people who are all in basically the same situation. You take hundreds of them and you split them into two groups and you give both of them advice. You say, this is what the current standard of care is. You say, here's what you do. You should eat well and exercise. But then with one group, you say, okay, you should eat well and exercise, but also we'll give you a trainer and you're going to train and we're going to make sure that you actually do this for years. And this study has 800 people in it. It was across multiple countries and it's across multiple years. This is one of the reasons why this is so hard to study, because we're talking about you have to keep these 400 people just giving the information, these other 400 people in the exercise group for a long time, because cancer remission sometimes doesn't happen immediately. Sometimes it happens 5 or even 10 years after the initial diagnosis. Now, because of these observational studies on colon cancer and other cancers, we were pretty sure that for some cancers, exercise can have a beneficial effect. This is why I, admittedly, have changed shape since finishing chemo. Like, I'm heavier, but hold on, I don't know, is this embarrassing to do on camera? This is not a thing that, like, previous Hank would have been able to do while still talking. Like, this is wild. I can almost do a pull-up, you guys. Seriously, I can do like 30 push-ups without stopping. So we can check out the results of this paper. Started in 2009, so that's how long these things take. And that's why this is a big deal to see this paper. At the median time of follow-up, which was about 8 years, the disease-free survival was significantly longer in the exercise group than the group that just got like the here's how you live healthy pamphlet. So there's a couple of things that I, as like a person who looks at scientific papers to maybe talk about them publicly, look for in a paper like this. One is that they use intention to treat as the inclusion in a study group. So what can happen is you group these 800 people into two groups of 400, and then some of them drop out of the trial as time goes on. They might drop out because they just don't want it anymore, and like they have bodily autonomy, so they can do that. And what sometimes happens is those people just never get counted. It's like they were never in the trial in the first place. And in this situation, that would be especially bad, because then you are testing for whether or not someone can do a workout regimen, which is going to be testing for a lot more than whether they're just doing the workout regimen. So what they did is they randomly chose these two groups, and then no matter whether you stuck with it or not, you are included in the trial. So this is intention to treat rather than completed the treatment. If somebody dropped out, either because they didn't want to do it, or because they got sick, or because their cancer came back, or because they died, it could be they died of something else. Like, this is a long period of time and there's a lot of people. They still include that person in all of the data. They stop collecting some of the data on them, but they include them in the final endpoint, which is whether they had the disease at the end of the trial period and also whether they were still alive. So that's the first thing that you want to look at in a case like this. It doesn't surprise me that they used intention to treat, but you definitely want to check. I don't think that anybody would be excited about this study if it didn't use intention to treat, but it did. The second thing you want to look at is what's called your hazard ratio, and in other studies this would be an odds ratio, but in this it's a hazard ratio ratio. I'm not going to talk about the difference between those two things. It's not that big of a difference, but what it basically says is that the hazard is disease recurrence, and the ratio of the hazard is the ratio of people who were in the control group versus the treatment group, and less than 1 is going to be less hazard, and more than 1 is going to be more hazard. So in this case, your hazard ratio for disease recurrence, new primary cancer, or death is 0.72, which is, like, if that were a chemo, that would be prescribed, like, it would immediately, you would have to prescribe this new chemo. That's quite good. And that's with the 95% confidence interval. So always in science, this is a very important thing when you're looking at a scientific paper, there's always both the number and the confidence with which you know that. And so there are statistics run here, and the confidence interval is from 0.55, which would be amazing. That would be basically doubling your chance of something not going wrong, and 0.94. So that's a pretty wide group there. But right in the middle of those two, the most likely number is 0.72 hazard ratio. And then there's a 95% certainty that it's between 0.55 and 0.94, which means that the chance of this being a random effect that we're just seeing by chance is negligible, and so you would call that statistically significant. But in addition to it being statistically significant, I would call this significant. If you tell me that the 5-year disease-free survival rate is 80% in the exercise group and 73% in the health group, a difference of 6.4 percentage points, I'm gonna think, I should do this exercise thing. If that's a pill, obviously you take it. Results also support longer survival than the exercise group, than the health education group. Hazard ratio for death, 0.63. So that's 7 percentage points better than the group that just got the advice. But also they did include that there are adverse effects to exercise. So musculoskeletal adverse events did occur more often in the exercise group than in the health education group, 18.5 versus 11.5. And if you've ever been to the gym, you know that you can hurt yourself at the gym. So that doesn't surprise me, and it's very important to include. So another really important thing with clinical trials is what are the eligibility criteria? And this is not to get into the treatment arm, it's to get into the trial as a whole. So everybody in the trial is going to have the same eligibility. As we said earlier, it's required that you have a certain kind of cancer and that you did basically the same treatment. So you had a completely resected stage 2 or 3 colon cancer, only stage 2 or 3, and then you have to have completed adjuvant chemotherapy within a certain amount of time after having your surgery. So all these people are in that same situation. They also tested for like physical ability. So how capable are you? Now, this is really important because this means that these results might not be seen by all groups. There are some people who are less able, who maybe have different BMI, who maybe are older or less capable. There's this thing called the ECOG score. This was how they did this. They had to have an ECOG score of 0 or 1. That basically means you can go about your daily life fairly normally. The ECOG scale, I've got it here. At 1, you can have some restriction in strenuous activity, but can do light work. Then there's like 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is dead. So I didn't know that the scale went to 5, but these are people who are mostly active. And so importantly, this is a treatment that you cannot use on everyone. That's true also of chemotherapies. There are many chemos that people have a certain level of ability. You don't give it to them because they might not survive the treatment. And then also, interestingly, another piece of the eligibility criteria is that you can't like be doing a bunch of exercise. Like the people in the study aren't people who were doing a bunch of exercise before this is something new that they are adding. So you were not eligible if you're too fit. And there's a few more things I want to talk about here. First I said 1, then I said 2, then I said saying 3. So another important thing about, so 2 other things I kind of want to talk about. So there's, oh my God, I edited all of those out. But now there's 3 things I want to talk about. The first is that the fact that this works for colon cancer doesn't mean that it works for other cancers. Cancers are very different. They have very different, things that push them forward. So in this case, there are some ideas of what the mechanism might be. And that is the second thing that I wanted to talk about, which is that it is, in general, in science, you want to have some idea of why the effect you are seeing might be happening. Sometimes you don't have that, but oftentimes you have a mechanism in mind. In this case, they talk about various mechanisms. Here we have exercise may be an effective treatment for colon cancer, micrometastases, and prevention of second primary cancers through various mechanisms, including increased fluid shear stress, I don't know what that is. Let's look that up. The mechanical force exerted by a moving fluid like blood on the cells it flows over, especially the endothelial cells. I think what this is saying is simply there's more blood moving through your body, and that's going to increase immune surveillance because it's carrying the white blood cells to places they might not otherwise go. But then we've also got enhanced immune surveillance, which could be increased by fluid shear stress, I just learned. Also reducing inflammation, improving insulin sensitivity, and altering the microenvironment of major sites of metastases. And we've got some references here that we could check out. So we've got some idea of the mechanism of action here. This may affect metabolic growth factors such as insulin and insulin-like growth factors that promote cancer cell proliferation and progression. Insulin is important, as is inflammation. They also, this isn't part of this study, planned analyses of serial blood samples will address questions related to possible mechanisms. So one of the reasons that studies like this are so expensive is because you have to, in order to get the data you really want, you have to be collecting a lot of data. That means sending these people for blood samples regularly, every 6 months, every 2 months, every year. I don't know how they collected the blood, but you could possibly see differences in the blood between these two groups. That won't necessarily tell you what the mechanism was, but it could give you hints and start you off on other journeys of discovery. But importantly, these mechanisms are going to be different in different cancers. It might be that if it's about like increased immune surveillance, there might be some cancers that are better at hiding. So if that's the mechanism of action of exercise increasing the odds of survival, then that might be less common in other cancers because they're better at hiding from immune cells. Likewise, if it's about like actually physically removing cells from the walls of blood vessels, there might be stickier cancers out there, or cancers that don't move through blood vessels. Maybe they move through lymph. Cancers are very, very different from each other. So just because this is something that works in colon cancer, it might not work in everything, but exercise is good for you. And so that's why I started exercising a lot after cancer. I have not got a super fit body. I'm jiggly still. But when I'm at the gym, I often have the thought, I'm doing this because it is decreasing my chance of relapse. And is it? I don't know. It might be, but who knows? And the last thing is, just because this decreases the odds of cancer coming back does not mean that it is a cure-all. We've had very few situations in anything really, but in cancer treatment specifically, where something does everything. And somewhat frustratingly, you have to have limitations to these things. So this focused almost entirely on physical activity in terms of like aerobic. So most of the patients, I think, either did jogging or brisk walking. Those were the exercises. We're not talking about like really intense things here. And they were going toward like a certain amount of hours of exercise a week, which I think was quite low. Because ultimately, they're not necessarily looking for the thing that created the most aerobic activity. They're looking for things that are enjoyable and that the patients would stick to. And they found a number of things. So we had these observational studies where we looked at people who exercised and we saw that they did better. But now we have a randomized controlled trial that actually found, in fact, that there is this advantage. Exercise is just good for you. And this almost certainly means that it isn't just good at preventing a relapse of a cancer, particularly colon cancer, but it would also be good at preventing the first case. Now, that's just me talking out of my butt because relapse is different than occurrence, but we're talking a lot about butts today. So in here we can see the actual data here. So we have the exercise group and we have the health education group. That's the group that just got the pamphlet or was told. Any event you see 93 versus 131, that's a big difference. It's such a big difference that it really would have been worse to be in the control arm of this trial. We also have where those recurrences happened. Interestingly, there was no difference in recurrence in the colon. That makes some sense. It might be that those cancers were just there and they didn't get cut out during the surgery. And then you have distant recurrence, which is all significantly lower. Well, I don't know if these are significant, but all look quite a bit lower. Lung is actually the same. Peritoneum, but you can see that recurrence numbers are quite a bit lower, but also whoa, that's interesting. So new primary cancer. So that would be a cancer that isn't, so this is not related to the colon cancer. So you can get like colon cancer cell taking root in your lung, and that would be like a distant metastasis. And that's what this distant recurrence means. And then we have new primary cancer down here where we're seeing just a halving of new primary cancers. Jeez. And does that have anything to do with the colon cancer in the first place or the treatment? Now, colon cancer treatment is going to increase your risk of a new primary cancer. So in my case, they always call that a secondary cancer. So that's not your cancer. It's another cancer that would be caused by your treatment. But they're not calling it that because who knows if this was caused by the treatment. But we're seeing in terms of a new primary, so you can actually check and see if it's a new primary colon cancer. It's interesting. I don't know how they would do that, but I'm sure that they can. Genetic analysis or something. I don't know. And they see a huge drop in the cases of breast cancer. Just wow. Colorectal down to 0, other equal on both sides. But that's remarkable. Death without recurrence of primary, so death unrelated to cancer, pretty much the same. My guess is that that's not statistically significant. Death from any cause, lower, higher. These are real people. These are like 25 people who died during these 8 years, and that if they were in another arm, then maybe they wouldn't have. We also see consent withdrawal or a loss to follow-up, so they drop out of the trial, I think is what that means. And that's interesting that those numbers aren't significantly different. So even though the exercise arm is more work, people stuck in the exercise arm. And then these are always my favorite looking graphs. So you actually see where the deaths occurred and how these diverge from each other. And that's remarkable. That's clearly a pretty visible change there. So that you see a lot of graphs like this, and they're really understandable, so I like them. Right here at 60 months, that's 6.4% percentage points, but at 120, it looks like that's like double that size. I mean, I can't say that offhand, but I tell you what, you guys, exercise is good for you, and it's hard to do RCTs for a long time on exercise, but we've done it now. We know that it is advantageous in the case of people who had colon cancer and may have their colon cancer come back. But we also know that in those people, it's super advantageous for new primary cancers, especially when it comes to breast cancer and colorectal cancer. So that's great. So this trial was just a huge amount of work over a very long time. And I'm very glad these people did this work because, again, if this was like a new drug, everyone would be getting it. And it's hard for behavioral intervention to be treated like a drug. It's something that you have to do forever, for example, but it's also something that's a heck of a lot more pleasant than chemo. Going for a walk, good. Going for a walk, good. But as I mentioned before, it's a little frustrating that because, of course, even with all of this work, you have to focus in on some specifics. So like weight training, for example, wasn't part of this. It was mostly about aerobic, which I'm doing both of. But what differences would you see if we were looking at weight training versus aerobic or a mix of both? We don't know. That's just not a part of the study. Thank you for hanging out with me as I walk through all of this. And now, let's play Connections. I am excited. I have no idea what is about to happen. This is me. It's me at my store, Good.Store, that I do with a bunch of people, where there are products you can buy and all the profit is donated to charity. We are launching a loyalty program. We just have. It's launched. I'm going to click on Login, and I'm going to see how many loyalty rewards I have banked over the years of being a loyal customer to Good.Store, which I am. I get the socks, I get the tea every month. I also buy stuff, got some gift cards for people. So I bought a lot of stuff at Good Store, and I'm going to activate my Good.Rewards account. I'm going to see how many dots I have. It's dots is the currency, because we could be doing this in a way where you join and then moving forward you accumulate dots, but we also did it in a way where it goes backwards. So if you sign up now, you can see how much you have accumulated from your subscriptions, which are double dots. You get double dots for subscriptions, which I have 2 of, but then you also get dots for every dollar you spend. I'm going to join and agree, and I'm going to see. I have over 1,000 dots! I have over 1,000 dots. This is exciting. I can also sign up and put in my birthday here so that I'll get dots for my birthday. My birthday is May 5th. I'm going to save it. I can follow you on Insta. I can follow them on Instagram. I think I'm already following a Good Store on Instagram, if we're being honest. Already following. Should I unfollow and then follow again? Will that work? Will that give me dots? Let's refresh and see if it happened. Oh, I did it. I did it. 1 dot for every dollar spent. 50 dots for a review. I've written several reviews, so I might have dots for that. Refer a friend, 100 dots. I could refer you guys and get some serious dots. And I can convert $5 for every 100 dots. So I got 50 free bucks here. Or I can get 100 dots free shipping, or a free tote bag for 400 dots, or a free sticker sheet. And I can redeem those right now. Those are things I can get right now. Points to redeem. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah. Let's redeem 500 of my dots right now and to see how that works. Reward redeemed. And that created this discount code, which I can now use at Good.Store. And so if I wanted to buy some undies right now, We have the last of these undies. So we did these undies. They were good, but they weren't perfect. And now we're going to work with a partner to create different undies. But these are the limited edition. These are never going to be made again undies. They're actually sold out in a bunch of sizes already. But I think if I go to this one, I can get some large undies. And I can add to cart. And that's $10. That's a good deal. And I could also add a soap sample pack. That's $10. And then I'm still not at $25. I could just buy these for the ankle socks. And I really liked these ones. And I can add those. And now I can check out. And I can add the code here and apply. Oh, that's fun. That's nice. And I get all that for $9.99 because I'm a loyal Good Store member. So that's how the Good.Store loyalty system works. And now you know. And now we're going to play Connections. June 23rd, Connections. Historical. Old-fashioned. These are kinds of fiction. Historical fiction, young adult fiction, speculative fiction. I saw that immediately. Literary fiction. Those are the fictions, everybody. Collins. Collins, Mr. Collins, Tom Collins. Tom Collins is a cocktail. Old-fashioned is a cocktail, but a Collins isn't really a cocktail. An old man, a belle, mom, skinny. Skinny is a kind of skinny jeans, old-fashioned jeans, flare, skinny flare, old-fashioned belle. Those are like jeans descriptors. That could be that. I don't know about old-fashioned. Old-fashioned jeans? Maybe. Is there a better one than that? Son, Collins, shot, boyfriend, farewell, old man, literary, no, mom. Mom, what the heck? Okay, well, I feel okay about that. Skinny jeans, skinny flare, old-fashioned belle. Yeah, that sounds like jean cuts. Mom, old man, farewell, boyfriend. Boyfriend? Boyfriend. I feel like that might be a clothing cut too. I feel like I've seen that where it's like this is the cut if you're wearing your boyfriend's pants and like that became cool. So they like released boyfriend cut pants for women. So it could be flare skinny boyfriend belle and old fashioned. So we're not going to touch that yet. Old fashioned is a cocktail. A shot is a way of drinking. A cocktail is a way of drinking. Cocktail. It's got the word tail in it. Farewell, cocktail, boyfriend, old man. Shot, cocktail. Those are two ways of drinking. Are there any other? Am I missing them? I mean, a skinny is also like a kind of drink. Like you can get a drink but skinny, and that's where they don't put as much, where they put like a low calorie. Like you get a skinny rum and Coke, where it's Diet Coke. I don't know. Is that a thing? I feel like that's a thing. The long farewell. The long old man. The long skinny. Tom shot. Tom Scott. Just so everyone knows at home, this one has a lot of empty space in the middle where I don't know what's going on. I think I've got two categories, but I'm not sure of the complete shape of the second one because I've got several things that could fit in it. I feel like I should be able to get this. This feels like a red herring to me because it's not really groupy enough. Like a Tom Collins and an old fashioned are cocktails, and that's not really the same category as a cocktail or a shot. So that it can't be that. That's baiting me. And I think we've got flare, skinny, belle. That's almost certainly in these. And boyfriend or old-fashioned are, well, I don't know. Maybe not. But let's look at the other ones. Farewell is a way of saying goodbye. It is a farewell. That's all. It's a welfare. Friend boy. Tailcock. No. Shot. Sun. Shot is a way of drinking. A shot is like the stuff you put into a shotgun shell. A shotgun is a thing. A shot, the past tense of shoot. Man, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to assume that since this is the red herring, oh, my mouse got big, then that this is going to be in this category. And we're going to see if this is at least the jeans. No. In addition, it wasn't even 3 of them. So the jeans was fake. The jeans was fake. Okay. Well, maybe that explains why I've been having such a hard time here. I'm going to give up on purple first, and I'm going to at least go for this. Okay. And that's not even the yellow. So I'm missing something obvious. So that was my problem. I thought that I had the jeans category, and it was screwing with me. Belle, flare, things that like call your attention to something. A shot. I don't know why I'm like feeling sun for this category, but oh man. Look. They don't always go great, everybody. Okay, we're going to try this and see if this is at least I'm headed in the right direction. Okay, that was also not it. If it's a cocktail, I'm gonna be mad. If it's like some shit like this, cocktail shot, old-fashioned, skinny, Collins. Ugh. Did I just miss a jeans category that I didn't see? Maybe the jeans category is real, and I just somehow only clicked 2 of them. I don't remember what I clicked, though. Old man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you were. All right. I'm going to go... Kinds of drinks. A cocktail is a kind of drink. A Collins is a kind of drink. You can have skinny drinks. You can have an old fashioned. These are kinds of drinks. I don't think I've ever lost but like I'm scrounging right now. 1 away? Great. Okay. So is it a freaking drink thing? Is there another kind of jeans that I'm missing? I'm going to go with boyfriend. I'm going to go with flare. I'm going to go with old fashioned, and I'm going to go with belle. These are all jean types. I think. Boyfriend jeans, I'm almost positive are a thing. Skinny is also jeans, but that one I included in the last one. Son, farewell, mom. None of those are jeans except for skinny. But we're going to go with this. It seems like jean types has to be a thing. Oh my God! Mom jeans! Mom jeans! Mom jeans! Boyfriend, flare, mom, skinny. Words in Hemingway titles? Oh my God. Oh, glassware. You can have a cocktail glass. I did not know you could have a Collins glass or an old-fashioned. Old-fashioned is just in a regular tumbler. There's not a special old-fashioned glass. That's not even that special of it. No, that's just a glass. That's a regular cup. That's a tumbler. No. That drink is not popular enough to get its own cup and for its cup to just be a freaking cup. That's just a cup. That's a typical cup. No. Old-fashioned glass and a Collins glass? What does that look like? A cup? I'm like 100% sure this is going to look like a goddamn cup. Oh, does it look like a cup? Is this a Collins glass, everybody? A cup? That is the glass that I drink out of in my house. That is a water glass. 3D? Can I see it in 3D? Ooh, you made it in 3D. That is my cup. Okay, well, it has a Wikipedia page. In American English, a Collins glass is a glass tumbler which typically contains an amount, commonly used to serve sparkling cocktails, especially long drinks like Tom Collins or John Collins. Apparently there's a second Collins, what I didn't know about. This is a tumbler. The kinds that are Collins glasses, highball. I was actually thinking of a highball glass when they were showing me, but a highball glass is higher than I thought. Iced tea glass, juice, old-fashioned glass, a rocks glass, a whiskey glass, a lowball glass, or simply a lowball. Lowball. I would call that a lowball. Jesus. Well, apparently I'm not cultured. Well, I'm definitely not cultured enough to know anything about words in Hemingway titles. I was never going to get that one. I'm aware of Old Man in the Sea. I couldn't. Farewell to Arms. I've never read a Hemingway book. I simply did not have the culture necessary for this issue of Connections. I am not happy, but it is what it is. I don't love losing. That was a long one, sorry.